Listeners, I have got you don't know this, Matt. I don't know if you know this, but I've got Matt Roberts here, listeners, and he is our highest downloaded podcast of all time on UKOCR. You're
I didn't.
famous, Matt. Welcome back.
Oh, I didn't actually know that. That's pretty cool. Pleased to
Yeah,
hear that. That's good.
it's close. It's close. Don't get me wrong. There's like an extra 5 or 6 in it. Let's not. I want you to be able to stay on the screen. I don't want your head to get too big. But no, you are our highest. I just checked just now, just to make sure I was right. But yeah, you're still the highest. And you keep on getting downloads. Just to give you an example, you've had 10 this week.
Oh, mega. That's awesome. No, I'm really pleased to hear that. Obviously, yeah, word's getting out there and people are taking some value from your podcast, and it's good to hear. Yeah. It's kind of the story of my life, always people creeping up. I've never been the best, so it's good to be on top. Even if
I
it's
don't
small
know about that. You are on the top. Before we go into like a little bit about stuff, you've just told me where you are. Do you want to tell my listeners where you are and what you're doing? Because we talk about primal living. This is serious primal living.
Yeah, so we've come out to Ireland. The intention was to come and do a biomechanics course, which we done, but we flew into Ireland last week and literally just got a camper van. Didn't even have a game plan and was just like, right, let's go here. And we've travelled around the whole of Ireland, like all the mountain ranges, been hiking, been running, and basically just chosen a different location each and every day. We've literally got like a little pocket rocket and a gas cooker, and then we'll just stop, get some meat and veg from the supermarket, and then go cook up. Like the place we're staying tonight is right on the coast. I mean, if you look at my Instagram stories, like the beaches are incredible. Like I'm just like speechless with Ireland, and obviously the weather's been great, but it's like we're in a completely different time zone. Like it's like we're like Central America. Like there's aspects that are like feel really tropical. The ocean is like clear. The beaches are pristine, more so than like even in Mexico, and so it's been incredible. But anyway, so yeah, we done the biomechanics course and was meant to fly home after that, and then was like, you know what, let's stay. So just hired the camper van for a few more days, and here we are like 3 days on from that, and we got another sort of 24 hours here.
So is this camper van, because there's different types of camper vans out there, I've seen different ones. I've had one, mine was very basic. Mine had a bed in, a little cooker, stove, that was it. But then I've seen the big ones where, they have things that, rooms that move out and get bigger and things like that. What size is yours? How big is it?
Oh, I don't know if it's appropriate. Like it's a graffiti one, and down one side it's got "Let the good times roll," and on the other side it's got "Acid Kings" written on it. So we've had all these people staring at us like as we're driving around, like going "Acid Kings." It is like not appropriate in the slightest, but it's been hilarious because we've just had such a laugh, and watching people's faces as we drive past in this camper is hilarious. But yeah, it's great.
This takes me back to Brighton, doesn't it, with the acid and let's go back to the 80s in Brighton. Acid. That's a little bit like Musticle's logo, isn't it? Musticle, they had the picture of the yellow face with the smiley thing. That was a bit like the acid logo, wasn't it, years ago? Did you remember the acid logo? You're a bit younger than me.
I don't remember the acid logo as such. No.
Oh. Yeah, that was in my different days of living. That. So whereabouts in Ireland have we been to?
So we flew into Dublin, and then we picked up the camper and went straight across the country west to a place called Galway. Spent about sort of 24 hours there, and then headed south and hit some of the mountains around there. There's what is it, Galtee Moor? I think it's like the third highest peak in Ireland, and we just like literally put it in Garmin and was like, let's go do some hiking. We've done about sort of 11.5, 12k. There's like 1,000 meters of elevation in like 90 minutes, but it was so cool just hitting the peaks, doing some downhill, and there was like this massive lake in between the mountains, so we jumped in the lake afterwards. So yeah, it was awesome. And then after that we headed further south towards sort of Cork area, and there was a few more sort of mountains, and then we've headed east, and then spent a lot of our time in the Wicklow, County Wicklow area, which is absolutely phenomenal, like waterfalls and yeah, hills. It's just like the Spartans' dream, really, just for terrain. And yeah, doing some trail runs here is phenomenal. Like Spartan, or we need to do more races out in Ireland because the terrain is just, yeah, it's absolutely immense. Like really, really is.
I don't think Spartan's gone out to Ireland for a long time, have they? From my
No,
understanding. I know we call
no.
it Spartan UK and Ireland, but I don't remember the last time that they actually went over to Ireland.
No, no, I think it was 2019. That's the last time I raced here. And I was
Yeah.
thinking about it today because we went hiking today, and it was like, why wouldn't we do here? They'd done it at a race course, which was good, serves a purpose. It was flat and fast, but you've got all of this countryside, and it's honestly breathtaking. Like it's like you're somewhere in Europe at one point just because of the terrain, and then it's like you're somewhere like around the waterfalls, and you're in the forest, and it's like you're somewhere like in Central America. It's like really crazy. I don't know whether the weather's contributing to that. There's like a massive heat wave at the moment, but yeah, it's absolutely breathtaking. I didn't expect Ireland to be like this in the slightest, and it's the second time I've travelled it, but I've just seen it in a different way this time.
Wow. Wow. I think one of the biggest challenges Spartan has are going to places like that, and also some of the places in the UK. I live in the Peak District. Right on the border of the Pennines. There's some amazing terrain that they can use. What there isn't, and from my experience, in a lot of places like this, is car parking. There
Mm,
is nowhere to get 5,000 and 6,000 cars anywhere near an event to put it on in these, in the remoter locations where, the greatest terrain is. Wales wasn't bad, when they went down to Wales.
hmm
And when I look around at the places in the UK, you've got to really go up to Scotland, some of the biggest states of Scotland. I look at Wales, that was okay, but there really is nothing in the Pennines and the Peak District where the hills are, where that terrain is that they have in the States, when they send them up the top of the ski resorts and back down. We don't have that over here, do we?
No, not at all, not at all. And we've got some beautiful countryside that, yeah, is underutilized. It really, really is. We was at, yeah, I've been up to Scotland a couple of times this year already, doing hiking, and been up to the lakes and the peaks, and like, yeah, again, like the terrain just lends itself to OCR. But I don't know, maybe it's a permission thing or something like that. I don't really know, but yeah, it will be awesome to do it, and I'm sure it'd attract people. I've got some American clients, and they've been seeing me post about Ireland, and they're like itching to get over here because I think the Americans and the Canadians, they love a bit of Ireland. I don't know what it is. It was hilarious the other day. Actually, I posted something with the Irish flag, and an American was like, "Ah, oh, don't forget your bagpipes and kilt," and I was like pissing myself. I was like, "You got the wrong idea," but yeah, I found that hilarious.
That's cool. The green top as well, like the Irish green top, but with the primal wings on, of course. But I love the green top. Was that part of your attire today? You thought, I'm coming on Alan's podcast, let's go green for Ireland?
No, that wasn't actually the intention, but we're trying to, yeah, spice things up a little bit more. Like within primal, there's obviously different phases. There's different people that have been with us longer. So like the colours are basically denoting, well, in a way, seniority, experience, where they're at, and stuff like that. So green is kind of like a more advanced one, and also it's a lot more aesthetically pleasing to the eye. I like to wear a lot of black and a lot of white.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way I am. But yeah, having some different colours is good from time to time. So yeah, just spicing things up really, and that's about it really.
Cool. I'm a black and white man. I love just plain. I'm very plain clothes, black and white, very neutral and that. Last time we spoke, we talked about primal fitness and a lot about nutrition and that. And I've noticed on your website, we've now gone to the Primal app.
Mm.
Tell me a little bit about this, because this wasn't here when we spoke in March. Was this in the back of your head back then, or where's this come
Yes,
from?
Yeah, this is a combination of a couple of things. I mean, for the people that are on the program, they get access to an app with like basically course modules. So I think, like we said last time, it's all about the education. There's no point doing something if you're not going to come out the other side like more educated. So, like through the app, we give people tools and resources in regards to education, so nutrition, fitness, lifestyle, and also like mindset training, which helps them with their personal development. It's not always about overcoming the physical obstacles. It's, if not more, about overcoming those sort of mental barriers. So there's lots of education contained within those. So we provide them to the people that are on the programs. But then also the actual app that we use for coaching is where everyone's nutrition and fitness programs are at. And that's where we do a lot of the interaction, put lots of sort of habits and routines on there for people. So yeah, that's kind of a new thing in some ways, but that's kind of been there in the background for the long haul, really.
And we've seen a lot of apps come out now, aren't we? I mean, I don't know if you know, I'm not going to name them because this is about you, but we've seen several real top level athletes all bring some type of training app out now. I think that's going to be the way forward. In the past we've had big ones like Fit. The really big companies do them, but we're now seeing athletes like yourself and coaches like yourself bring them out. Where does yours stand out? Because Primal Fitness stands out. We talked about this last time. It's very much a let's go back to basics. Let's go from there. Let's talk about the biomechanics of exercise and things like that. Mm-hmm. Where does yours stand out compared to the others?
To be honest, I think it's because it's very specific to the individual. I mean, I've used apps for fitness and nutrition for years now. And I also recommend a number of apps to the guys that I train because it actually feeds into the app that we use and has a lot of connectivity. But the problem I see with a lot of apps is they're still pretty generalized. And for us as individuals, we need the specific information that's going to give us the tools and resources to set us up for success, whether that's with our nutrition or whether that is with our fitness. For example, there's a number of like nutrition apps out there that will go off of whatever recommendations that the app is prescribing as such. But then we may need something completely different because I know we spoke about nutrition before, like what works for you won't necessarily work for me and the next person. So there's individuality contained within that. So a lot of apps are just generalized. I'm not saying that they're bad because some people may only need generalized information to kind of bridge the gap, but kind of the higher you rise, the thinner the air gets. Therefore, the higher you rise, the more granular the information you need to move that need a little bit further. So in regards to our app, yeah, it's just very specific to the individual. Like we use it only for the people that are on the program, and we can build out their nutrition, their fitness, any sort of habits and routines in regards to their lifestyle, place it on the calendar. And then when they go on their profile on the app, they've got all of that there. Anything they do on the app, we see. Anything they don't do, we see. If it's inaccurate, we know. If it's accurate, we know. We can communicate backwards and forwards with that. I mean, but there's a lot of apps out there, to be honest. But yeah, I've made sure that our one is interactive as possible, really, and specific as possible, because that's what we need, really.
It sounds very very specific. You said there you upload training plans to them individually, where some of the ones I've seen, you literally put in your details and then it instantly pings back, a training regime for you, which, like you just said, that person, that might not be for you. Might not what you want.
Yeah.
And I guess that's where these people who are putting these together, they've done a lot of research. They might have spent 6-7 months, maybe even 12 months building this, but they've got generic things. What you're saying is that yours is not generic. Yours is, if I signed up for it today, I would potentially get a plan in a couple of days' time, because would I fill a questionnaire in? Well, how would it work?
Oh, 100%. It's not a case of just clicking our fingers and then off we go. I mean, there's a number of stages that and steps that we take to make sure that ultimately it's a fit for the individual to obviously be coached by us, because if they're not compatible for the program, or we're not compatible coaches for what they specifically need, well, what's the point in working together? Like, you might get more value going elsewhere. So what would basically happen, i.e. Alan, if you were to jump on, there would be at least a 7-day period where we'd evaluate everything from nutrition to fitness. A number of assessments will be done to make sure that what we do prescribe you in terms of nutrition, fitness, and anything lifestyle related is specific to you. Because if we don't have that information, how can we prescribe that exercise or information if we don't know exactly where you're at, and then also your goals? Then it's kind of just going to be generalized. And that's what I see a lot of apps is enter your details. There you go. You want to lose X amount of weight and you want to achieve this fitness goal. And it's like, boom, follow. And it's not to say that won't be effective, but it may be ineffective over the long term versus the short term. Short term, you could get some fitness gains. Don't get me wrong by doing that, but it's all about the long term, consistent changes over time that lead to big results and make the biggest impact. And through people like taking workouts from magazines or apps, the amount of people that I hear and see like becoming burned out or injured because they've literally stuck to the program is unreal. But this is the beauty of like having a coach, not essentially being coached by me, us, and our sort of team, but having that third person to kind of guide you and literally coach you and kind of give you that guidance all the way through. Because if you don't have that feedback, like I have coaches, like you wouldn't believe how many coaches I have for different aspects, like but I do. And partly that's for education and partly that's for the guidance and the further education, but also accountability on that. And we all need that. And that's the thing that truly sets us up for success. So yeah, I feel like generalized can work, but ultimately, if we look at it this way on a timeline for the next year, if we were to commit to a program or a particular training process, and it was at the intensity of one of these generalized apps, potentially along the way you're going to get injured, and ultimately that will lead to a setback, and it's going to take you longer to get from A to B versus doing it properly and doing it very specific to you whilst listening to your body and backing off when is necessary. And that's the thing that will carry you forward versus going, well, the program says this on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I must do that. Actually, the body doesn't work like that. And this is where like intuition comes into that individuality as well as the coaching, because we could go out for a run today, Alan, and we're like, right, we're going to do 10K, we're going to climb these features, blah, 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 blah. But I get halfway up the first hill and I'm like, Alan, I'm not feeling this today. I got a niggle in my ankle. And you're like, all right, come on, let's crack on. Stop being a wet lettuce. Let's push forward. And then I end up getting an injury that sets me back for a number of months versus going, I'm not feeling this today. Let's back off and let's revisit this to see how I feel tomorrow, see how I feel the next day. So there's got to be freedom and flexibility in it. And yet again, this feeds into the mindset of training as well. It's like we feel like we're weak or failing if we don't do training perfectly. Like I've been traveling like on the road for the past week, and I'm pretty open and honest about my training. People be very surprised how little training I do, but the training I do is incredibly effective and quality training. Like I've done one strength training session, I've climbed once and done like 3 runs in a week, been incredibly active the rest of the time, and I feel physically charged and primed because I've listened to my body. Yes, I could have done more, but ultimately that's not my goal of being here. So I think to summarize that, generalized is going to be short, sharp, and intense, and non-specific to the individual, which could ultimately set you up for success in the short term. But in the long term, that's not going to serve you, and that'll purely be because there's likely not going to be any continuation to that. But if you really want to set yourself up for success, you need to find what works for you as an individual and understand that it's going to take you time to get to that point, and it never really ends. So always be looking to what's next. And something we do in that initial process with people, we call it our reverse method. And people would have heard something similar to this, but it's essentially beginning with the end in mind. It's like, make sure you're clear on the outcomes you want. So what's the ultimate goal? What are the side goals? Why is that important for you to achieve those goals as well? Because that why is the driving force. And everyone's got goals. I want to lose weight or I want to hit podium. Great. Well, why is that important to you? And that's a real big thing. But then something I see a lot as well is once people have gone out and achieved these goals or come close to them, they're like, sweet, that's it. I can take my foot off the gas. But what you need to do is cast vision beyond those goals. So you've always got something on the horizon. So looking at 2023 now, the UK series has got a ton of races. I mean, we've got all of the races contained with that. We've got the Spartan series, we've got the time trials. There's so much to do. and that's just within the UK. So always be looking for that next event, what's
Yeah.
beyond that, and actually attack it with a bit of a game plan versus just going about it sort of haphazardly. And then obviously once that's been done, you've established the goals and cast vision, you work back to the present day, and then you create habits and routines that are going to set you up for success. You be flexible and adaptable with that, and then you move forward and hit process goals between A and C, that end state. And yeah, just build on your success throughout that time versus going too hard too fast.
Them long-term goals, because I never knew this until quite recently. So when I've ever set myself a goal, my goals, I've thought short, medium, and long term, but my long term have always been maybe 12 months away and never really looked further than 12 months.
Yeah.
But now I'm getting athletes message me because the UKOCR series, they're wanting to know what races are next year so they can compete for those races. They can, what's in your series? Because I want to go to the series races. What are they? So I know where I am. I can book them, and I know I can train now to be prepared for them, because the series is so diverse. It includes a Spartan race, which we all know is about running, but then it also includes beach ballistic, which was this weekend, which we know is going to, you've got 10 heavy carries there, you're running on sand, and to go down to nuclear, which we've got 16k at the Challenge Cup, and 70, 80 obstacles to accomplish. People want to know what they're doing so they can plan the season and and go to, and I get that now. So I mean, setting them goals, like I've just said, that is pretty clear advice. I've never ever done that. I've got to admit, I've never ever set goals beyond, I guess, 6 months in terms of fitness. Maybe because I'm getting old, I don't know.
I think it's really, really important. So like, just begin with the end in mind. What's the end state? And if you're not really clear on that, then sit down, pen to paper, or just book something. I think that's something that's really powerful. I mean, I don't know whether we spoke about it last time, but I launched a Facebook group at the start of the year called the Obstacle Dominators, and there's a lot of people coming into this group that have zero obstacle course racing experience, and they're like, well, I love everything that's going on in here, blah blah blah, but I need to be fit before I can race. So I'm like, well, actually, no, you need to book an event, because that starts the chain reaction to put everything into place, because otherwise it's still open. Yeah, I want to do this race next year, but I haven't booked it. Well, there's no commitment. And if there's no commitment, like, do you really think you're going to put in the work? And this is one of the fail safes I do. I book all of my events at the earliest opportunity, so I know it's happening. There's no escape. You have to go and do that, but obviously with freedom and flexibility. So I think like people need to get clear on the goals, establish the reason why that's the focus, look beyond that as well. It doesn't need to be perfect. And obviously everything has to be flexible, adaptable in this current climate. Things will change for whatever reason. But it's needed, because that will give everyone the driving force to move forward and achieve things.
I like that. Set long-term goals. Before we go to that, let's talk about your season so far, because last year we was up there. We age group. You dominated age group last year, 2021, and that. This year we've had 2 races, and I hope you don't mind me saying this. I'm not seeing you at the level that you were last year. Is it a fundamental change in you? Are you deciding to have a little bit more fun out there? Well, what's the change?
Yeah, so I stepped up to the elite at the end of last year. So going into this season, firstly they messed up my ticket, so I'm under like an American flag. They think I'm hosting for the States or whatever, which is funny. So I can't see any of my stats on anywhere. But yeah, clearly it's a different sort of pond. There's bigger fish in there, and it's really been a challenge for me to step it up and contend with these guys. And going into the season, I was speaking to my coach, and he's obviously competed elite in Spartan and OCR before, and he's like, just go out there, have some fun, like you're in a phenomenal place. So my goal for this year was to qualify for the European Championships, and I went and done that. So achieving top 10 places, I've done that a number of times now over the past sort of 3 weekends that we've done. So I'm really happy with where I'm at. And I'm having a lot of fun this year as well. I'm not crushing myself. I don't feel like there's any pressure. And in fact, this kind of feeds back into what we were just saying about the goals and something I've already mentioned, but being realistic with your own expectations of how long it's going to take you to achieve the outcomes that you want. At the end of 2021, after winning the series, I said to people on social media, it's like, this is good, but it's going to take me at least another 2 to 3 years to get to the position that I want within this elite category.
Yeah.
Because it takes time. I've got no running background. Yes, I was in the military for a period of time, but it's different fitness. It's load bearing and carrying across like undulating terrain for hours or days. It's certainly not running. So a lot of my focus this year has really been unwinding a lot of imbalances, and going back to the start of this conversation about going to a biomechanics course. I've been working with a biomechanist for the past 6 months, like multiple times a week, to get my body to move properly, to get my feet to function correctly. Because if you think about like movement and being efficient with our movement, that's going to allow us to be more fluid. And the more fluid I am, the faster I can move for less effort. Therefore, that's going to enhance my game. So it's almost, for me this year, it sounds crazy, it's like regression in terms of like physical fitness, in terms of dropping the hammer and pushing forward and really taking it back to basics. Like one of my coaches, like, you'll find this comical, I've been crawling. Like I've been going back to basics because there's movement patterns within human movement or the biomechanics that I've obviously missed when I was younger. And then there's been imbalances caused by my previous career. So it's like, let's rewind, let's get the feet to function, let's get all the bones and the joints and the muscles to move efficiently, and the legs again, so that I can move effectively. So yeah, that's really been my focus. And to be honest, like that's going to be my focus for the next year as well. I've got a number of events lined up for 2023, but I am like in making sure that I am as efficient as I genetically can be over the next few years. So come 2 years, 3 years down the line, I am performing, because alongside that, I'm still working on my running, I'm still working on my strength training and stuff like that. So yeah, I'm pretty content on where I'm at with that. I feel like it's good. And for the first time, I think, well, in forever with my training, I've alleviated any of that self-induced pressure to go out there and just like go and hit a podium. It's quite freeing to go out there and compete with people that have got 4, 5, 10 years experience, whatever it is in the scene. Like there's no comparison. I feel like this is another pitfall for a lot of people, is constantly comparing themselves to other people, when ultimately it's you versus you. And I've had my best races when I've gone and run my own race and run the terrain to the best of my ability and come out the other side going, you know what, I'm really happy with that result. And a big thing for us as human beings is like, we always like to focus on the negative and what's not going well, but that just kind of takes away from any of the successes and wins we do have. So yeah,
I'm a little bit like that. When I'm out running, I focus on what's hurting rather than like, oh gosh, yeah, I am running 5-minute kilometers here, but rather than concentrate on how well I'm running, I'm thinking, oh, that left knee hurts, that right ankle's a bit sore, and
yeah,
I just focus on those things. That's strange that I've never even really thought about that before, that's what I do, rather
yeah.
than, I'm a minute here, I'm running well. Why am I focusing on these negatives? Yeah, maybe and I'm not a negative person. I'm thinking now. Well, I'm not really a negative person. I'm normally, quite jovial. I mean, I never say anything when I'm running. I never say. I do actually run with a few friends, and they're going, "Oh yeah, my knee's hurting. So and so's hurting." And I tend to be a little bit quiet on when I've got niggles, only because I'm like 14 years older than them, and I don't want them to think that my age is a factor when I can't catch them on some hills or whatever. But yeah, strange that. So let's go back to so we're next race, big race, Euros. Are we off to the Euros at Pippingford?
Yeah, gonna do the Euros. Just gonna go in and do the beast. I may do either the super or the sprint. Just I'm gonna hit open heat and have some fun with some of the guys. And then after that, it's going to be going to the Trifecta World Championships in Sparta. So that's kind of where I'm at for the rest of the year. Not kind of made my mind up about Abu Dhabi yet. I'm not really too fussed. Kind of getting my sights set on, working on 2023.
So is the A race this year? Would that be the trifecta, the Sparta?
Um,
Or are we just going to go and enjoy it for the rest of this year?
yeah, I think so. I mean, the Euros is important to me. That's kind of my focus for the year was top 10,
Yeah.
so that I could qualify for the European Championships. That was achieved. Now I'm switching focus onto the Euros. Just going out there, running my race, having some fun, and doing the best I can. It's going to be tough because you've got the best from all over the world coming to compete in that, and yet again being realistic and just having some fun. Really, just having some fun and gaining some experience and learning from some incredible athletes. That's kind of my focus. And then the trifecta. Yet again, we're going nomadic as well. Booked the tickets for the race, booked the flights, and we're going to land in Athens, and that's it. We don't know where we're staying yet.
Oh.
I like that uncertainty. You have to think on your feet. It's good.
I love all that. I don't know if I've ever told anyone this, but the first time I went to America, I think I was about 25 or 26. You go to Florida, to go on there, and I booked 4 weeks off work. I was like, yeah, let's go Florida, and I booked one of these villas as you do in Orlando, and I booked the villa from Monday to Monday, 7 days. The second, third, and fourth week I was Miami, Key West, and Tampa. So I booked accommodation for them as well. But I landed in Florida on the Thursday when we had nothing till the Monday. So I had no accommodation. And I not told my partner at the time that I was like, we haven't got nowhere to stay. So we're in the airport and she's going, well, where are we staying? I went, I don't know. Let's just find somewhere. And literally, as we were leaving the airport, there was a big board and it said, looking for accommodation, here's the hotels local. And you pressed a button. It was like a big touchscreen board. And when I say big, I mean, it was massive. It was, if I say it was like 30, 40 meters long, and, there were hundreds of hotels. And I just picked one, I pressed one, and then a phone rang and you picked the phone up. And I went, yeah, I'm looking for an hotel for 3. Yep, no problems. We'll send a taxi for you. I was like, what's this about now? They're sending a taxi for me. I love the whole not knowing where you're going and things like that. And I'm very much like that in my running. But going back to the app, so we quick talk about the app. We'll just talk about where you were and that. You mentioned you've got a lot of coaches that coach you, so you'll be gaining a lot of knowledge from them coaches as you're going along. Do you pass that on to your people that you're coaching?
100%. It's a massive exchange of value, and that's, like I said earlier, like education is really the thing that sets us up for success. So that's why I invest in having coaches to will help me out, like, because what I learn within my own body, I can obviously apply to myself, but then I can start to recognize different things in different people. So 100%. I'm not just taking it all for myself. It's massively important. I mean, this year, I've been working with the same personal trainer for the past probably two years now. I've worked with 2 different biomechanists. I've worked with a number of different therapists for physical things, whether that's the feet or like sports therapists. Also work with mindset coaches as well. So full on different approaches here. And that's not just specific to like OCR and performance. That's just like day to day, like breaking down like self-limiting beliefs from past programming from childhood or whatever that may be, or it could be, I don't know, trauma from the past or whatever. But really it's just about pushing past any of that, breaking down the barriers so that you can move forward, and ultimately overcome sort of self-sabotage, which I think is prevalent in everyone. And going back to that negative thinking, those negative thoughts are a survival mechanism. Like when you're running a race, you're like, you know what, you could just kind of like pretend you've rolled your ankle and you could just get off the course and whatever else. Like that's it. Like you're in pain. So the body's like, you should stop now. Like, although you're completely safe and your body could push past that for hours and hours and hours. Like you don't want to be uncomfortable. And physically we can push through a hell of a lot. But mentally is what I see to be the biggest blocks for most people that prevents them from moving forward. And I've hired coaches. I've worked with like love and relationship coaches. I've worked with mindset coaches. I've worked with business coaches, and that's purely just to get out of my way of my own success. And that really is a big one. And we're constantly going to be torn between like what's the right way, what's the safe way, and a lot of people don't take enough risks with things, and ultimately will stagnate. But typically that's not the individual's fault from what I see. Yet again, like myself, it was stuff that's happened in the past. So it's like addressing that so you can move forward, and then focusing on the present, but also having those goals at the end. So you've got a future-based course to go and pursue, because there's, as good as it is to remember things from the past, if your mind is still in the past and you're getting eaten up by things there can't really be much of a future from what I've seen in my own experience, and also working with a lot of people. So that's why I've invested in coaches: one, for the education; two, to get out of the way of my own success; three, to apply it to myself; and four, to, well, empower other people. And that's kind of what the course was over the past 2 days. Was looking at my foot function, looking at other people's foot function and how that corresponds to the rest of the leg. Because if the foot isn't functioning correctly, well, how do you think you're going to be able to run most efficiently for you as an individual? You technically can't, because the foot is like, well, basically like a spring that you come off. And if that's not functioning, well, they're the foundation of the body. Nothing above that is going to be functioning correctly. And 60% of your body is upper body. And so although you think running is purely legs, well, you've got a torso and arms and a head that needs to be positioned correctly so you can move efficiently across the ground. And we saw a running coach last week who took three of our guys down to work with a coach called Christian Paul in London. We got on his fancy tech treadmill and looked at our running efficiency and gait and stuff like that. So yeah, it's tackling things from all angles. And a lot of the work I'm talking about here is like easy stuff that you can implement into day-to-day life, and that will cause significant changes and gains over time, versus I want it all, I want it now, which is unrealistic. As much as we'd all like to wake up and have that six-pack and like be all over everything, the reality is that it doesn't happen like that. So yeah, it's been realistic.
I get that. Going to these biomechanics and your foot movement, I have a very funny gait, I will say. I have a very funny way of running. I played football for years, so I tend to, rather than run with my arms down my side, my arms like tend to stick out. Playing football, it was like harder for players to get past you and things like that, and I've never got past that. But when I actually run, I tend to, they call it, is it pronate and supinate, I think? So is it pronate is the inside of your foot and supinate's the outside? I actually pronate on the heel, but then my foot rolls to the outside. So I go from a pronation to a supination. Yeah, so it is like a complete roll. And I do suffer from my ankles because of that, you know, especially when I've been on a long run. So when I talk a long run, I'm talking like, you know, ultra distances, 30-mile plus. I get to that point and I'm actually fine running. I don't feel it very much when I'm running. It tends to be when I've stopped running that's when the pain starts to set in, because my foots have stopped moving. You know, there is no mechanical movement anymore. I'm now stood still, and all the, you know, the muscles are saying, "Oh gosh, we should never have been running like this. You know, this is not the right way of running."
Yeah.
What is the biomechanics? What is the right way of running? What is what I'm trying to get to? Is there a right way? Is there a wrong way?
Yeah, this is where we open up a can of worms, because it's yet again like what works for me won't work for you and the next person. I was listening to a guy called Weck, David Weck, who's an American guy, talk about like some of the best runners in the world, like sprinter Usain Bolt, but then Kipchoge on the other side, and he was going, well, based on the model like these people don't run how they should, but they're the best in the world. But what works for them works incredibly well for them in terms of like how they utilize their foot. And he was talking about Kipchoge has too much of like an inversion, so his foot will overpronate. Therefore, you'd think, well, how can the foot like function to the best of his ability if it's doing too much in that area? It's neglecting other aspects. So that works for him. If we were to change his foot function or the way that his body moves, that would probably take away from his performance. You could argue, well, actually, if we move this to this position, that could be more optimal and that could enhance his performance more. So this is what this is really about, is like, what is optimal for you as an individual, rather than going, this is a foot, this is how a foot's structured. It's got something like 28 bones and like 33 joints in it. That's a significant amount of like matter, and that's not even talking about the ligaments and the muscles and things like that. So really it's about like balancing that so that, well, you prevent injury in the first place, but then you optimize performance. I know for my feet, like I supinate out, so that causes kind of being exaggerated more of a bow in my legs. So theoretically, that'll put strain on the outside of my legs. So at the moment, I'm working to essentially bring that tripod foot into a better position. So I've got more balance on the foot. Therefore, well, the ankle's in a better position, knees in a better position, the hips, the spine, like all the way up, the head position, the shoulders, and they all have a knock-on effect. If something's out of alignment, that's going to have an effect somewhere up the chain. So it really is about finding what's optimal for you. If you are experiencing pain, then something should change, or something should be worked on to improve on that. And yeah, pain's a signal that something's been done too much, too frequently, at probably the wrong intensity. So it'll be about toning it down, finding what's appropriate, and working through it. The guy who hosted the workshop this week, he had a very similar sort of lower body to what I've got now about 7 years ago. So he had an absolute field day seeing me. He's like, I relate to this. I used to have this problem. Like, your talus isn't moving and you're not pronating your foot in the proper way. And actually your tripod foot is more in and it should be more out here. So it was really good to see him speak about that, but it's taken him 7 years of persistent daily work, and not like going in the gym and hammering himself for 90 minutes. It's more just daily doses of working on the corrective movement to balance his feet, prevent sort of any injury. And he had 2 knee surgeries. I think he had like some sort of spinal surgery as well, purely because his feet weren't functioning correctly. And this is something we look at with our guys, is like doing a gait analysis or like a postural analysis, because it's like, well, people just think, well, we're going to train the body, I want to balance the muscles. Well, what about the actual structure of a body? Because if that posture isn't in a good place, how can you actually move efficiently? And if things are compromised, then you're increasing the risk of injury. So to kind of answer your question, yeah, you could use a model by saying, well, this is optimal based on the human skeleton, but is that actually optimal for you as an individual? Or would it be beneficial to change that, or would it be more beneficial just to leave it the way that it is? So yeah, it's quite a broad subject, to be honest.
I guess you're balancing a little bit of like, now the current pace, the current speed of whatever you do something, against the long-term effects of doing it the wrong way. As you mentioned there, Kipchoge, that is in theory is running the wrong way, because he hasn't got, the right posture, the right wherever it is. He's fast at what he does, an absolute legend at what he does, but because it's not got the right way, later in life, he could end up with potential issues, and I hope he doesn't, God bless. But and one of the things I've got in my mind here is, I'm constantly told at work, I'm not sat right at my desk, because I sit very relaxed. I'm not sat upright, and when you're typing and things like that, and I don't do that. I do tend to sit back, relax, and type away. My boss is coming around and saying, Alan, you need to be sat up more, you need to be, and he's going, in years to come, your back's going to be ruined. And I'm thinking, well, I'm 55 nearly now. It's a bit late to tell me in a few years' time. But I guess that's what it is. You sort of, you're forsaking one for the other. Is that sort of where you're looking at them now? But the biomechanics, you're thinking, okay, I'm good at what I'm doing, and I know I can do this. But if I work on this, I'm going to have a longer career.
Yeah.
Is that the way we're talking?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there's a fine line between like health and longevity and performance. Performance, there's not really a correlation to perform to like your genetic peak. That's not going to be healthy because you're going to have to push through things, and like your health will be at a detriment. You've seen like world-class athletes, well, do that and feel the brunt of it. So yeah, really it is about like preparing for the long term, knowing that actually I'm going to be doing this for probably the next 10 years at least. I want to make sure that I continually incrementally progress throughout that time period, remain injury free, have some fun while I'm doing it, and be healthy, and see what happens within that versus trying to force changes. So it's like an investment for the future, but I know in the shorter term over the next few years, actually that's going to feed back into physical performance on top of that, because I'm going to be able to train consistently, because I'm not like burnt out or fatigued or injured. Also look at the my body functions now in comparison to if I continue to plant seeds with this over the coming years. Actually, it's going to put me in a better position to perform to a higher standard as well.
Definitely, 100%. So, where can first of all the app? Do we have to sign up to join you before we get the app, or can people just sign up for the app on its own?
No, so yeah, this is only for people that come on the program, that level of sort of like specificity. And yet again, I don't want to give out sort of generalized advice and whatever else, when actually we all need to get granular within our sort of training. So you may be able to find it on the App Store, but it will just be pretty sort of open and stuff like that. We'll send people the logins, the links, and all of that, and it's kind of included within the sort of coaching and programming in regards. That's not to say that we won't do an app in the future, but I know we spoke about it before, like the Apex program. That's kind of one of the smaller apps that we use, and yet again, that's an educational course. So if people want more education, more of an insight to like the primal approach and our philosophy and how we sort of eat, train, and live, that's a great place to start, as well as getting some sort of decent fitness gains alongside that with some of the training we've put in there.
Definitely. And to sign up with you, so to contact you, if I'm right, I think I've got the emails. We're going to put in the links anyway, but it's taplink.cc PF Matt Roberts, /PF Matt Roberts. And how much is it? What we're talking, 12 months, yearly subscriptions or monthly subscriptions? What is it people pay by, and how much?
Yeah, pretty much. It depends on the individual. We work on phases versus programs. I mean, for example, I'll give you two examples. So normally we'll start with anywhere between sort of 4 and 6 months to start with. And then at the end of that phase, we'll evaluate where people are and obviously assess and see if actually they're eligible to move forward, kind of get the green t-shirts and beyond. We call that the evolve phase. Beyond that, we've got legacy and some other sort of components. But really it's making sure that the individual has, well, taken on board everything that we've taught them, and they're starting to embody that and implement that in a realistic way. If they haven't, then they'll just kind of repeat phase one. And we've had 2 people in the past week do that, and there's absolutely no sort of judgment on our side for doing that, because they need a little bit more time. So this is what we're talking about, being realistic with things. If you need more time to focus on the basics and tie them down, do that. Because if you think about it, 4 to 6 extra months of doing that is going to put you in far better stead for the coming years. So that's one of the options. Option 2 is to kind of move forward and do sort of like a year to 18 months beyond that. One of the guys extended into our Evolve program today, so we're going to be working closely with him for the next sort of 12 months. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at. It's all about phases, and if I was to dig into what the phases are actually about, it's habit building first and foremost. And human beings are habitual creatures. Some of those habits, I don't want to say like bad, and some are good, but some set us up for success and others don't. But yet again, that's just what we do. We fall into routines and behaviors for comfort, and that's the way we live our life. So it's kind of changing these habits that aren't serving us to our highest level to better habits and behaviors, and we do that over that sort of initial 4 to 6 month period. And they say that it can take 21 days to 58 days to start formulating a habit. Well, we take you through this habit building cycle anywhere between 4 and 6 times in that. And ultimately, once that's done, we continue to build on the success and turn those habits into a lifestyle, and to create a lifestyle that can take literally another 12 to 18 months on top of that to really solidify the thing. So we try and capture people and guide them through from where they're at to building habits, to being successful with those habits and routines, then moving more on to creating a new lifestyle. And this is where we focus on a lot of performance as well. And then ultimately beyond that, it could take, I don't know, maybe another 18 months to create that and turn that into a new identity. And that is really where we want to be. So if anyone looks at me and think, Matt, you're a cyborg, you're superhuman with everything, I've literally spent 10 years working towards where I am right now, and that isn't even being consistent. It's probably only really been the last 3 years where I've really been consistent. The 7 years before that, I was just doing things completely wrong, wasting a lot of time, and I'll be a lot further on the line if actually I went through these phases of a very sort of bite-sized and progressive change. And now sort of 3 to 5 years down the line, everything is second nature. And it's something we say for the guys that have been in primal for a long time. They're like, it's easy, it's effortless now. And the reason it's easy and effortless to tie down your nutrition and train consistently and feel motivated is because it's a habit. It's part of your lifestyle. It's ingrained in you. It's starting to become your identity. So it's second nature. It's automated. You don't have to think about it. And that in itself is incredibly freeing, because you can focus on bigger things and more things. Like, so I don't have to think about like little things. Like, I've been out in nature, so I'm kicking off my shoes. I'm getting plenty of sunlight. I'm getting my feet on the ground. I'm getting the benefits of that. I'm eating nutritious food. I don't have to think about that. Like, people like, there's literally a pub and a bar over there, and we've just had like some steak, and they're like serving all these fries cooked in vegetable oils, and I'm like, well, actually, I'm going to swap that out for mash, and I'm going to do this. So it's just knowing what is going to serve you to a higher level, because I know if I eat that bad food, I'm going to feel like crap. And that's not to say I won't eat bad food from time to time, but it'll bite me in the backside. And that's kind of the teacher. So it's kind of time and consistency and going through these sort of stages of change, versus, I don't know, maybe spending the next year going around jumping on sort of 12-week programs for the next 10 years and ultimately not really gaining the ground you want to. So it's really about breaking that, building you back up in a progressive and sustainable way that's specific to you as an individual, and then building on that success. And one of the calls I had with one of the guys today was, what do you feel like you need to focus on right now? These are the 4 areas that I'm going to help you with. Like, what is the most important one right now? What is necessary? What's not? What's a priority right now? What's not? And he goes, well, it's this one. Great. What contained within that? Why is that the focus? Why is it important for you to achieve that? What's going to happen if you don't achieve that? So it's taking him from where he is, seeing what's important and what's not, having laser-like focus on that, apply repetition till that's ingrained, knock down that one, that will cause a domino effect and lead on to other things. Sounds really complex, but really it's about building habits, right? Once we've got a habit, it's automated, it's second nature, and we're in a good place. But yet again, if we said, Alan, right, tomorrow we're both going to start this new fitness regime and we're going to implement 52 changes tonight. So when we wake up, we're going to execute them all. We're gonna fall off by this time next week. But if I go, Alan, right, there's 50 changes that we both want to make, and all we're going to do for the next year is just implement one of those a week. Just super easy. Which one do you think is going to be more successful? The one that we can like digest easier, because it's realistic and sustainable. And if more of us done that, would be 10 times more successful. But yet again, we feel like we're wasting time if we do that. But in actual fact, it's quite the opposite.
I get that. I like that. I like that idea. One change a week. I'm going to implement that myself now. You just give me your thoughts. I'm going to implement that myself. Before I let you go, I've got one more question. Obstacle dominators. Are we going to see them next year in the UKOCR series? Are we going to see your team racing and competing with the best?
You know what? I hope so. I've been speaking to a branding guy, because like it's really booted off, and I was like, I actually want to just like create a community out of this. Like, there's already a great community there, but I want to kind of bring cohesion. So I'm currently working with a branding guy to sort of like help us design the brand a little bit more and give us t-shirts, because this year's been great. Like, the amount of people I've bumped into, and I'm like, oh, you're Matt from the Obstacle Dominator group, thanks for all this, it's really helped and that. So it'd be really good to like identify people that are in that group by, I don't know, having a vest, having a logo or something somewhere. So yeah, most definitely I think so. And even like stateside, we've got some of the guys that are like, I'd love to like be like an ambassador out here for this sort of stuff. So yeah, it's in its sort of infancy at the moment, but I can certainly see that sort of happening. So it's in the pipeline. So maybe next time we speak, I'll be like, yeah, it's up and running.
Matt, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you again today. Hopefully, we're going to get like another record downloads on this one. See how many records we can break on this one.
Let's share it everywhere.
Yeah,
number one and number two.
That's our one goal for this week, to share this podcast everywhere.
That's it for the next 52 weeks.
Yeah.
Right? You've done this last year. Just keep bumping up the algorithm.
Matt, thank you very much for joining me today. It's been a pleasure speaking to you.
Thank you, Alan.